Now, there's still a little bit of that regret because I know that earlier in the race, I basically undermined my ability to get what I needed done. You know, the analogy of a short 1.5-mile race to the analogy of a 15-year military career to the analogy of a lifetime serving Christ. There are plenty of times that I look back and I go, God, I was stupid. Lord, please forgive me. And I regret the things that I've done, and I regret the things that I haven't done. Hey, welcome to the Work, Wisdom, and Wonder podcast. I'm your host, David. I ran my last PT test for the United States Air Force this morning, and I didn't do as well as I wanted to do. Now, I can make all sorts of excuses. I could be like, it's because I was kind of feeling sick yesterday, and I just didn't prepare enough, and I've been too stressed out, and blah, 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 blah. But no excuses. Play like a champion. A man of excuses is not really a strong man, and that, to be honest, is me. Many, many times. I make too many excuses, and maybe you do as well. That we ought to, as men, when we're transitioning from one thing to the next, when we're transferring skills, when we're moving to a new job, when we're finding a new purpose, however you want to say that we need to essentially finish the previous thing strong. And now, as I'm thinking about my job, there are many different things that, man, I would love to just be able to up and pretend like I no longer have a job. But there are still people who are counting me to get things done, and I need to get them done. And it is godly to get them done and to finish strong in whatever race you are currently in. So this brings me back to the PT test today. So I'm taking my PT test, I'm keeping track of my time, and I know in my mind what the maximum score is. I had told myself that I was gonna try to max it, because it's the last one, but I want to finish strong. And excellence is valuable even when it has no consequence on the outside, right? People are like, it doesn't really matter, like whatever, like you're not going to take another one. And it's easy to get trapped in that idea, but I had said, no, I want to do as best as I can. But then what happens? You're in the middle of the run, it's 1.5 miles, it's not that far. And you're in the middle of the run and you're like, man, like I'm tired and I'm annoyed. And I'm looking at the time and I hit the halfway point and I'm like, if I kick it into gear, I might actually be able to max this. So I hit the halfway point and I do it. I kick it up a little bit, right? I don't kick it up a lot because I don't want to burn myself out too much. I still have 3/4 of a mile to go. And then I'm thinking through and I'm like, man, I'm tired. And you know, I see that marker for the 2/3 point. I'm like, man, now I'm at 6 minutes, 30 seconds. There's 1/2 mile left, and I'm at 6 minutes, 30 seconds. And in order to max out, I need a 9:36. I'm looking at it, and I'm going like, can I do 1/2 mile in 3 minutes? Like, that's not a sprint, like that's not Olympic, but I'm already pretty tired. And then the question starts coming to my mind, well, it's your last one. Do you really care? Do you need to finish that fast? And to be honest, this has been my problem most of my life, right? Is just this kind of going halfway, taking half measures. And so I'm like, all right, well, like let's try. Let's try to kick it up a little bit. Again, I didn't want to put too much on the ground because I didn't want to put too much on the ground and then fail. So I'm running, I've got music in my head. I've been listening to the Epic Saga. In the Epic Saga, the Epic Underworld Saga specifically, it's Jorge Rivera Herranz is the guy's name who does it. And if you haven't checked it out, it's basically a musical version of the Odyssey, and I highly recommend it. It's super cool. It's super interesting. But this is what I was listening to while I was running. And as I'm coming into these last, potentially like 3 minutes, the song that comes on is Monster, right? And the idea of monster is like, what if I'm the monster because I'm not willing to do all that is necessary? This is coming from Odysseus. I have shown mercy to the wicked. I've shown mercy to the Cyclops. I've shown mercy to Circe. I've shown mercy to all these other people, but in showing them mercy, most of my men have died. So the kind of central question of this song, Monster, is like, what if I'm the monster? What if the Cyclops isn't the monster? What if Circe's not the monster? What if these things are not the monsters? Poseidon even is not the monster in this case, but I'm the monster because I wasn't willing to do what was necessary to keep my men safe. And so this is what's playing in my mind as I'm going through this last half mile, and I'm like, all right, let's see what I can do. So I kick it up a little, and then I hit the quarter mile. And at the quarter mile, I'm at 8:30. Like, I have just over a minute for a quarter mile. And for anybody who ran the quarter mile in high school, you're gonna be like, yeah, you can totally do that. Fine, 103, 104 for a quarter mile, for a 400, yeah, it's doable. And you're right, it's doable, but it's also like, that's another gear when you're not in the best shape. And frankly, I don't run, I mostly surf. Again, here I am making excuses. You know what, I probably could still do it. So I dig in and I'm trying to run harder. And then I just hit a wall. And any runners in here, anybody who's done any sort of endurance work, you know what it's like to hit a wall. Heart rate spikes, respiratory rate changes, like your whole body seems to like crunch down, and you just don't feel like you're there. And then all that stuff comes back again. Like, it's your last one. Does it really matter? Like, it's fine. I'm still like, okay, I see the finish line and I see my watch and I'm like, now I am past the point of no return. There is no way that I can max it anymore. So now I have a new choice, right? I've already broken my goal. I could have at that point just said, well, I didn't make it. I'm already past time and I can see the finish line, and I could have just thrown my hands up and just walked to the end. And right, I did the wrong thing previously. I didn't kick it into gear. I didn't leave it all out there. Hitting the wall was a problem, but I still could have done it. But now I'm at the point where now I can't do it anymore. My indecision and my incapability and my weakness really has kept me from reaching my goal. So now the question is, do I just stop? Or do I say, no, you know what? I may not be able to reach my goal, but I can still finish strong. But I can still finish in a way that I am proud of. This is about way more than just finishing a 1.5 mile run, right? I've ran the 1.5 mile, I don't even know how many times now. During my military career, not just for testing, but just we run, right? This is something you have to do. So it's not just about finishing that strong. And I ended up finishing, I got a 10:17 for a 1.5 miles, which isn't my best by far, but also is not my worst by far. So it's respectable. It's something that I can be proud of. But I'm proud that when I hit the wall and realized that I could no longer meet my goal, then instead of just giving up, I said, nope, I'm still going to gut it out. I'm still going to finish as strong as I can. Now, there's still a little bit of that regret because I know that earlier in the race, I basically undermined my ability to get what I needed done. But I didn't use that as an excuse to just walk out that last couple hundred meters. And when I think about my military service that is about to come to an end, by the time I'm out, done, I will have 15 years of military service. That's my whole adult life, essentially. And there are certainly things I look back on and go, man, I hit multiple walls during that process in 15 years. But there are plenty of times when I should have been sprinting, when I was kind of coasting, when I could have dove in a little bit harder, when I could have pushed more for that thing that I wanted, or that thing that was going to be best for the organization or whatever, when I just didn't. And that does create regret. Like, there are things that I could have done better. But the key with regret is twofold. First, it's not to let regret completely shut you down from where you are now. I can't go back and change those things. Obviously, we know that. But it's so easy to just run through our minds over and over and over again. But that's a trap. The past no longer exists. So I cannot let regret keep me from finishing the race strong. And I need to finish this race with my time in the military as strong as I can. Leave the place that I'm in, even though I hate my job, but leave it better than I found it. And leave the organization better for having had me than when I first found it. Finish strong in whatever you're doing right now. No matter what is in the past, start now running like this race is everything. And I don't mean in your worldly sense. This is for the Lord. No matter how poorly we've done in the past, no matter how much farther behind you might be off of the time that you wanted in the race, the goal that you set. Even when we waste things, even when we waste time and we waste energy and resources and relationships and opportunities, God doesn't. He wastes nothing of what He has given us. Perhaps the prime example of this is Joseph. If we look at Joseph in the narrow lens of particular moments, it feels like a waste to be betrayed by your brothers and thrown into a cistern basically and sold into slavery. And then to be a slave for many years. That feels like a waste. And then finally to be elevated to a position of authority where you are serving well, and then to be betrayed and falsely accused. That feels like a waste. Are you getting it yet? It feels like a waste when we don't consider the end of the story, when we don't consider the end of the race. And it's easy with a 1.5 mile run when you can see the finish line. And it's easy at the end of my military career when I can see the finish line. And perhaps it was easy, and I put that in quotes, for Paul in 2 Timothy, when he can see the finish line of his life. He knows he doesn't have long for this world. And he can see the finish line, and he can look back and he can say, I ran the race. I fought the good fight for the kingdom. I have finished my race. When you can see the finish line, maybe that's when it's easiest. Maybe easy is the wrong word. But when you're in the thick of it and you cannot see the end, it feels like a waste. But this is where trust and faith comes in, because God wastes nothing. If I'm honest, there's a part of me that feels like 15 years of military service has been a waste. I have almost nothing that I really wanted in the world. I have very few close relationships. I'm still not married. I have no children. I've moved all over the world. I have many experiences, most of which I would trade for a little bit of stability. But at the same time, I believe and I trust that the God we serve has a purpose for all of it, despite the difficulty. And I've written a lot about the difficulty of moving all the time, of traveling all the time, of loneliness, of despair, of depression. But the Lord wastes nothing. And my story's not over. And neither is yours. So, wherever you are, even if it feels like a waste, it isn't. But ultimately, the Lord God is trustworthy. And He will make you stand. He will make you run well. And He will pull all things together for the good of those who love Him and are called according to His purposes. I hope this is an encouragement to you. In the words that I used to use with my students, go away.